Do you have the capacity of running and supporting BGP? Less than 2% of all network engineers globally can configure and maintain BGP. Do you have that unicorn working for you? Can you afford the equipment in order to run routers that can support BGP? Do you need an SD-WAN to do it for you? How are you going to manage double NAT? How are you going to manage, NAT boundary transition issues with circuit failover? Can you manage this yourself? Does your team have the expertise and the capacity to take on an SD-WAN service in addition to the rest of the workflow and things that they need to do? Conversation I'm having all the time now is related to SD-WAN. And really, let's just start with, what does SD-WAN even mean in the first place? So SD-WAN is software-defined WAN, but what does that mean? That means basically anything. In tech, when you have any sort of term that's defined by an analyst group or a piece of marketing, now you have every other marketing department from every other vendor and service provider that chases that terminology because it's tailwinds. It's the entire industry has moved that way. Clients are starting to use that term to check boxes in the RFPs, and these all become things that have to happen. So when we look at SD-WAN and we start talking about SD-WAN with our clients, really what we're looking for is we're trying to understand the nuance. What is the business problem they're trying to solve, and what SD-WAN actually solves that problem? So we get into things like, do you need SD-WAN because you just want a web-based configuration with auto-configured VPNs? Lots of good firewall appliances in the market will do that. You log into the web page, you configure, two firewalls in two locations. You say, I want a VPN between these two sites, and boom, you have a VPN. It's magic. Or do you need SD-WAN because you need circuit failover? But what conditions are going to trigger that circuit failover? How are you testing traffic across that circuit? Are you looking for just the circuits going up or down? Are you looking for performance across the circuit? Do you want to do traffic duplication, packet prioritization? Are you inspecting layer 7? That's Pandora's box right there. Or, are you looking for SD-WAN as an MPLS alternative? Do you need something to do and simulate an MPLS as either an MPLS replacement, or are you doing, instead of having two MPLS networks, you're going to have one MPLS network with one SD-WAN delivered MPLS network? What's your network architecture? You can do overlay or underlay. Are you spoken hub? Or all your sites islands? Are you trying to improve application performance? Are you protecting a critical application? Do you have voice traffic running across this thing? Do you have something that's disparate locations with low, with slow network links or high packet loss or high latency? Are you dealing with transoceanic network links with distributed applications? Do you have to deal with, are you hosting an application on premise still? Do you need inbound survivability of an IP address so that application can be highly available for a circuit failover? Do you have the capacity of running and supporting BGP? Less than 2% of all network engineers globally can configure and maintain BGP. Do you have that unicorn working for you? Can you afford the equipment in order to run routers that can support BGP? Do you need an SD-WAN to do it for you? How are you going to manage double NAT? How are you going to manage, NAT boundary transition issues with circuit failover? Can you manage this yourself? Does your team have the expertise and the capacity to take on an SD-WAN service in addition to the rest of the workflow and things that they need to do? SD-WAN is not a one-size-fits-all widget. It is just not something that you can say, oh, let's solve all your problems. We're going to give you an SD-WAN and that's going to take care of everything. Knowing what you're buying and why you're buying it is massively important. Otherwise, you're going to fall into some pitfalls. There's a really good SD-WAN service in the market that delivers their service via tunnels to POPs, so they control, they have gateways, and they do some phenomenal things in terms of QoS and packet prioritization and application redundancy. But it reduces the MTU size because you're doing tunnel inside of tunnel. Can your application support reduced MTU sizes or not? These are things that if you've not deployed this before, you can fall into some, there's a lot of little holes that you fall into. So, SD-WAN has become this is just another one of my little things I get to laugh about when we're talking to people that have an understanding of a buzzword, but not necessarily the technology or what they're actually trying to solve for. And part of the reason why when I'm in this conversation, I take a few steps back and we start talking about what the business is doing, what the applications are doing, and what is the business problem that we're actually trying to solve for. Is there a business problem that we're trying to solve for? Is there an issue that needs to be overcome? Is there an advantage or an efficiency that we can create? What are we actually looking for in terms of an end state? And how do we make people's lives better? Fundamentally, you're talking about delivering an application that somebody has to use in order to do work. And if you can make their life better, they're going to be more productive and the business is going to be more successful. So SD-WAN is a phenomenal piece of technology. I would just say that you have to know which SD-WAN you're buying and why you're buying it.